Okay, so here we go with another DC Multiverse unboxing. How are you all out there doing today? Let me make sure that the video's rolling along. There we go. All right, and what do I have to open for you today? Another DC Multiverse. Well, two figures, really. This is two-pack. Today we've got to open up for you Atom Smasher and the Spectre. So two characters very much with their roots within the golden age of the DC universe, within the golden age of DC Comics. The Spectre actually is a DC character, or a Golden Age DC character, and the Atom Smasher is a Bronze Age DC character who got a little bit of an update in the 90s, and we're going to talk a little bit about the history of that character. So here's the artwork on the back. We got an image of the Spectre and Atom Smasher, and this to me looks like it's a Dan Jurgens kind of style. It reminds me a lot of Dan Jurgens. Maybe it's a picture from Zero Hour or something like that. I don't know. It's a nice picture. Maybe a little bit of Al Davis in there. I don't know. Al Davis, the other Al Davis, not Alan Davis. He pops up in the chat and says, "Hello, dude. Hope you're doing well. I'm doing just fine." And Jason's Electric is here. And Jason says, "Hi, Alan. I picked up this 2-pack too." Well, hopefully it's a good one since I haven't opened it up yet. I have talked about the Spectre before, of course, because I opened up this figure a while back. And I'm really glad that we got the 2-pack because this figure is very hard to find. And not everybody was able to get a hold of him. And I almost didn't get a hold of him. If you recall, the main reason I wound up ordering the whole set of 4 was it was the only way I could get this guy. And he was the one that I wanted the most. I wanted him the most, and Earth 2 Superman the second most. And then, you know, probably Psycho Pirate. And did anybody really want that Kid Flash figure? It's not that great. But yeah, I really enjoyed this figure. I think he's really cool. There's a lot of really cool things about him. And he shares a lot of parts with this guy, the Martian Manhunter. And I was thinking about that as I was getting ready to do this episode. And, you know, how you wouldn't really expect an action figure of the Spectre to be essentially a retool of the Martian Manhunter. But they do have a lot more things in common than you might think, if you really think about it. Like, they're both founding members of their respective superhero teams. The Martian Manhunter, of course, being a founding member of the Justice League of America, and the Spectre being a founding member of the Justice Society of America. They're both ridiculously OP, because, you know, Martian Manhunter has, like, you know, basically Superman-level powers, plus he can turn invisible, plus he's intangible, plus he can read minds. And both have secret identities as detectives, with John Jones, police investigator, and Jim Corrigan. Yeah, so they do have a lot in common, even though they might not appear to on the surface. The biggest difference between them, I think, is that the Spectre, of course, being a supernatural character, and the Martian Manhunter being a character who has his roots more in the sci-fi genre, which, of course, is emblematic of you know, their respective time periods, because you had a lot more mystical characters in the Golden Age, and characters getting their powers through mystical means, whereas in the Silver Age, they were all about the space age, and they were all about giving more sci-fi type origins to their heroes. For example, Green Lantern, where Alan Scott had a mystical ring that granted him his powers. You know, Hal Jordan was granted his powers, his ring, from an alien space police force, and the Guardians of the Galaxy and all that kind of Guardians of the Universe. I'm sorry, not the Guardians of the Galaxy. He didn't get them from Star-Lord or you know, in my preferred Guardians of the Galaxy. He didn't get them from Vance Astro or yeah, somebody like that. Al Davis says, "I was just typing. I would want to get the Spectre on his own." Then you answered my question. Yeah, he is a hard figure to find. So for those of you in the audience who don't know, like I said, this Spectre figure is very difficult was very difficult for me to attain. I had to buy 3 other action figures to get the whole set to get them, and they did have them available on the Mcfarlane website. He was the first one to sell out. He was the first one to sell out separately, and then Superman after that, and then Psycho Pirate after that, and then shockingly Kid Flash, because the very mid figure. I'm being generous when I call it mid. But yeah, the Spectre was the one that sold out almost immediately, so I had to buy the whole set. So yeah, it makes sense that they would re-release the Spectre. And I've talked before about how, like, as much as I like this figure, I would have liked to have seen him re-released with a fabric wired cape. And we can see this guy has a fabric cape, but I don't know if it's a wired cape because Mcfarlane's been so iffy about that lately. Oh yeah, and one other thing I want to point out is that this looks more like Ryan Sook artwork to me on Atom Smasher. So they didn't hunt down 2 picks of these guys together, and that might have been kind of difficult. Like a pick of both these guys together, I mean, and that might have been kind of difficult. But the whole art style is different. Like you can see, like the outline of his individual fingers here are kind of a darker flesh tone than the black outline. That's more of a modern thing. This guy looks more like to me like an 80s or 90s, more like 90s. I think it's Dan Jurgens. This one is definitely like a 2020 or later, maybe like mid 2010 or later kind of illustration of Atom Smasher. Well, let's go ahead and get these guys opened up. And hopefully the Spectre does have a wired cape. So these are characters that don't really have like a whole lot of obvious connection between the 2 of them in a way that really, makes sense. Other than the fact that they're both members of the Justice Society. And I don't think they were even members of the Justice Society at the same time, because unless something happened in like the post-Rebirth era that I don't know about. The Spectre was never a member of the Justice Society during the time that Al Pratt was a member of the Justice Society, because Al Pratt was during the whole Jeff Johns era, and the Spectre was not a member of the Justice Society through the whole Jeff Johns run. And in fact, for a big chunk of that, the Spectre was not the Jim Corrigan version, probably for all of it. Because I think they managed to leave Jim Corrigan retired after the John Ostrander, Tim Mandrake Spectre series, which is excellent. For those of you who haven't read it, you should read it. It's great. Kyrus is here and says, hello, Alan. Hi, Kyrus. Hope you've been doing well. And then we've got 2 figure stands in here. All this stuff is in one big, thin bubble. Get both those out. And they are both identical. They are both matte black figure stands with a white DC logo embossed onto it. Every figure should come with a figure stand. That's my opinion. These days, they're getting so expensive, no excuse for every figure to not come with a figure stand. Then we have not 1 but 2 trading cards. Now, let's see if I can get them out of these bubbles without damaging them too much. It looks like the Spectre has like a little bit of some warping at the very edge of his card, unfortunately. And just from being in the package. And then Atom Smasher. And look at that wall of text. We're going to be here for a while just reading the back of that trading card. And the Spectre's is, relatively, kind of lengthy. I'd say about average length. It's not too long. It's not too short. We'll set that there for now. Of course, I'll have to box all that up later and take it down to the recycling. So let's go ahead and read these cards, and then we can talk some about these characters. We'll do Atom Smasher first. And youth before age in this case. Kyra says, I got the Psylocke 2-pack yesterday. Her price went down. Ooh, that's good. I always like getting a bargain. I'm a cheap bastard. Anyway, I showed you the back already. There's the artwork on the front. It's the same artwork we had on the back of the package, of course. And it reads, it's about to chirp at me. I can hear it finishing up. So I'm printing something out. It's about to do it, I promise. You want to wait until I'm talking again so you interrupt me, right? That's what you're doing? There it goes. Okay. So, and Al Davis says, Kyrus, nice seeing you here from the Sneezing Monkey chat, dude. Hey, look at that. Yeah, like sometimes I'll bump into somebody from another chat and in some other chat. Like Skywalker the Jedi is a guy that like I watch a lot of his chats. And sometimes I'll see our friend Sean Franklin in there and some other folks, and that's always a lot of fun. And then of course Sees the Director and Future DC Warrior. Those are guys who I think discovered this. They come over here sometimes, and those are guys I think that discovered my channel because I showed up in their chats, and became kind of a regular over in their chats. And then they let's see what this guy's up to. Kyrus is here and says hello, Al Davis. So nice to see everybody getting along in the chat. That's always fun. So let's go ahead and read the back of this card here. And it says, Atom Smasher, Justice Society of America, data file, real name, Albert Julian Rothstein. A true legacy hero, Al Rothstein is the godson of Golden Age hero, the Atom. That's Al Pratt. Grandson of the supervillain, Cyclotron. Not the superpowers figure. That's a completely different character that has no relation to the actual comic book version of Cyclotron. Albert decided to use his inherited powers for good, calling himself Nuklon and becoming a founding member of the young superhero team Infinity Incorporated. Now it's always spelled out like with Incorporated. You can't see it; it's too blurry. It's always spelled out with Infinity, with Incorporated abbreviated. So if you were to pronounce it phonetically, you would say Infinity Inc. But I always wind up pronouncing the whole word. I always say Infinity Incorporated. I just think that's a great name. Infinity Inc. is not so bad of a name, honestly. But Infinity Inc. also sounds like it's just a pen that just never runs out of ink. You know what I mean? I'll use my Infinity Ink pen. You know, it's like But I always say Infinity Incorporated. I don't think there's a wrong answer there, and I've never heard Roy Thomas say it out loud, so I have no idea how he pronounces it. Maybe I should try to look that up, see if I can find an interview where he talks about the team and see what he says, if he says Infinity Incorporated or Infinity Inc. I doubt it will change my personal pronunciation of it. I will stick with Infinity Incorporated. Just like I stick with GIF instead of GIF, even though the guy who came up with the word GIF pronounces it with a J, with a soft G sound. But it's not a graphics interface. It's a graphics interface. I'm very firm on this. It's GIF. I don't care. You were wrong when you named the thing. Al Davis says it's really funny. Great. I bump into a lot of like-minded and similar interest chats. It's awesome. And then Al says not lots, but a good few. And then Al Davis says, I think we were going to say Infinity Yink. Well, it does sound kind of like Infinity Yink, right? The same thing. And Al Davis says, I like Gorillas. Well, I hope eventually I'm going to show off a custom I've been doing, which is a gorilla that I 3D printed for Masters of the Universe, and it's Jijor. So yeah, I made my own version of Gygor. I found on the Bamboo Handy on their website, Gorillas in the Mist. Yeah. You know, there's lots of soft G words, but graphics is not one of them. I'm just saying. So if you're gonna start it with the G from graphics, your acronym, then it should have a hard G. That's what I'm saying. You know, it's a GIF. It's a GIF. You know, so anyway, where was I? After the team disbanded, Albert joined the conglomerate, and then Justice League America, not the Justice League of America, Justice League of America, Justice League America. I don't know. Like I don't know why they had to drop the of the. I don't know what good that. But yeah, Justice League America. I guess it sounded more 90s or more 80s or whatever decade that was in when they were called that. I mean, like first it was just called Justice League, and then it was called Justice League International, and then they put out the Justice League Europe comic books. Then I guess they decided call it Justice League America. Raheem Hamilton is here, and he says review Black Adam, Dwayne Johnson. Well, Raheem, I don't know if you're talking about the movie or the figure, but I actually did review the movie and the figure on this channel. So you can go back and check those out. I hope you'll find them entertaining. I was a big fan of the movie, personally. I loved it. I very much enjoyed that movie. And I actually, funny enough that you bring it up, we are going to talk somewhat about that movie when we do talk about Atom Smasher. But that having been said, I actually do have one more Black Adam movie figure to open up, because I have the version that came with the throne. Yeah, okay, so we're gonna have another one sometime in the future. We're gonna have another Black Adam figure to open up, because I do have one more figure of the character Dwayne Johnson, The Rock himself, as Black Adam to open up. That's the one that comes with his throne, and it's essentially the same figure that I already unboxed before, but he comes with a throne, and it's been a while since I've done that one. I figure I might as well do a video on that one. But yeah, I talked about the movie, and I talked about the figure, and if you're really interested in seeing that, you can go back and watch those older ones. But you know what? I think you just inspired me, Raheem. That's going to be my next episode. I'm going to finally open up that Black Adam figure with the throne. I think that's a good idea. So Al Davis is with me on GIF. That's good. And let's see. Al Davis says, cool. I like throne figures. Yeah. I want to print out a throne for my Conan figures, like the one that Arnold was sitting on at the end of the movie. And then Kyra says the Mafex Black Adam should be at a very good price. Yeah, I don't have any Mafex figures yet, but you know, if I could get one for cheap, I might. I would not mind having Black Adam be the only one that I had if I only had one. This is a wired cape. I am thrilled to report to you that this is a wired cape. All right, so we got. Oh, did I finish reading the trading card? Did I finish reading I actually finished reading the trading card. Oh yeah, I got distracted by Justice League America. Prolonged exposure to the thorium radiation had given Albert the ability to change his size and density. This inspired him to adopt the name Atom Smasher to better honor his godfather and grandfather. So, interesting thing about this character is Kingdom Come. That's where the Atom Smasher identity came from originally, because Alex Ross was obviously a big fan of the Justice Society and all those Golden Age heroes, but he was also a big fan of Infinity Incorporated, and he decided to bring a lot of those characters back and incorporate them into his magnum opus. So he brought Al Rothstein back, and rather than leaving him as the guy with the mohawk and calling him Nuklon, he gave him a costume not identical to this, but this was somewhat inspired by that costume. He gave him a costume that was more based on Al Pratt's Atom costume, and gave him the name Atom Smasher. And part of that was also that he wanted to pay visual tribute to those Golden Age heroes, but I think part of it was having the Infinity Incorporated characters, at least some of them, truly embracing the legacies that they left behind. Like another example is Jade, who had started going by the name Green Lantern in that story after her father. And that was the sort of thing that Alex Ross was doing with a lot of those characters. I liked what he did with Obsidian, because rather than obviously Jade was already named Green Lantern, and it wouldn't make much sense for a guy with Obsidian's powers to be called Green Lantern, since his powers are kind of the reverse. He's got shadow instead of light. But he leaned into the shadow aspect of the character and redesigned him to look somewhat like the Shadow. So I thought that was really cool. And then Al Davis is just as excited as I am for the wired cape, maybe even a little more so. And then Raheem says the Fonz played Atom Smasher in Black Adam. Yes, he did, and that was one of the things that I really liked in that movie was seeing Henry Winkler playing a DC superhero. How can I not love that? And it wasn't the first time either, because on The Brave and the Bold, on the last episode of The Brave and the Bold, Henry Winkler, which was an episode, all about jumping the shark. Henry Winkler played Ambush Bug, and that was great. Yeah, but yeah, he was Al Pratt. He was the Golden Age Adam. And Al Davis says, I wish they'd done a Fonzie era deep fake de-age full scene. Hey, I'm huge. Al Davis says, you just made me laugh out loud hysterically. That's what we do here. We aim to please. Oh, man, I'm about to skip the Spectre's card. We got to read the Spectre's trading card. The Spectre, one of my favorite comic book superheroes ever. I'm a huge fan of the Bronze Age, the 1970s run in Adventure Comics by Michael Fleischer and Jim Aparo. One of my favorite runs of any comic book ever. And I already mentioned the John Ostrander, Tom I think it's a Tim Mandrake, or it's Tom Mandrake. I'm sorry, Mr. Mandrake, if you're watching this, that I stumbled over your name. It's Tom Mandrake. I'm sure he really cares. but yeah, John Ostrander and Tom Mandrake did a run on the Spectre in the 90s that was kind of a spiritual successor to that 1970s run, and it's equally great, maybe even better in some ways. But it's like I personally still prefer the Bronze Age run because it's a little more primal, I guess, but the 90s run is excellent, and I think it's definitely on a par with that 1970s Adventure Comics run. So they're both definitely worth checking out. And you know what? We live in a world where you can just go onto a website and read scans of like any comic book that exists. So there's no reason not to check out these comics. If you're even the slightest bit intrigued about this character from me talking about him, go and read those comics. You will not regret it, especially because there's like, I forget exactly how many, maybe like a dozen, maybe less of the Adventure Comics run. So it's not going to take you too long. And some of those have Aquaman backup stories in them that are quite good as well. So I do like that run on Aquaman. Okay, so let's read the back of this. The Spectre, Justice Society of America, data file, real name Jim Corrigan. Jim Corrigan is the Spectre. Just told us that, man. The mystical embodiment of divine wrath, or as I like to say, the embodiment of the wrath of God. You have to say it in that Denholm Elliott kind of style from Raiders of the Lost Ark. Wiped clean by the wrath of God. You say it like that. So you can't just say wrath of God. I mean, that doesn't sound too good. Wrath of God. You have to say it like that. Torn between his desire for revenge and his destined role as an instrument of justice, Corrigan fights both the evils of the world, surrounded by his own baser human impulses. The only being on Earth capable of holding his own against the Anti-Monitor, the Spectre buys Earth and its other heroes precious time to execute their ultimate plan to save creation. So you know what? I don't remember what it said exactly on that one, but I'm pretty sure they just reused the text from the back of the previous Spectre figure, which was supposed to specifically be tied in with Crisis. And that's why we get the mention of the Anti-Monitor and the anti. Do you say Anti-Monitor or Anti-Monitor? I say Anti-Monitor because otherwise then it sounds like it's my dad's sister or something like that. Anyway, let's set that aside for now. Al Davis says, I'm not massively familiar with either of these characters. I really like the aesthetic of the Spectre. I thought in Justice League, the animated series, it was Hal Jordan. Well, he wasn't really in Justice League, the animated series, that much. I think he might have been in it. I don't remember, but during that era of the comics, I believe that you're right that it was Hal Jordan who was filling that role. So basically, what happens is, I don't want to spoil it because, like I said, I just told you to read this 30-year-old comic, so I don't want to spoil it for you now. But I will say this is that since you already know somebody else becomes the Spectre, I might as well. At the end of this series, it does have a very definitive ending for Jim Corrigan as the Spectre. And by the end of the series, Jim Corrigan is no longer the Spectre. I will say that. That is what I'm going to say. And somebody else has to take over the role, obviously. Somebody has to fill in the role of the personified wrath of God. So Hal Jordan winds up doing it because he's dead at the time. But, of course, they're going to bring Hal Jordan back, so he can't be the Spectre anymore at that point. So they created a new Spectre character that was Crispus Allen. And I thought he was actually a pretty interesting character. I'm of the opinion that I did not want to see, as much as I love the character, I did not want to see Jim Corrigan return because despite my love of the character, I felt very much like that Ostrander and Mandrake had given him a good definitive ending. And I felt like it's right to just leave it there. And, if you want to tell more stories of the Spectre, do flashbacks to the Golden Age. Or, this guy's been active since from the 1940s on to the 1990s as the Spectre. So there's a whole lot of spaces there where you can fill in some stories and what was the Spectre up to during the 60s or whatever. So it's not like you can't tell more stories of the Spectre. And the floating timeline means that you could probably extend the Spectre's existence into the 2000s or so. So I, much like with Barry Allen, I kind of feel like that's an end that serves the character, and it was best to just let him stay buried, let him stay at rest. And I think they have brought back Jim Corrigan in the post-Rebirth era, but I kind of don't care so much about that because I kind of look at that as being its own continuity. So I'm kind of fine with them bringing him back now. It's kind of like I don't really care if about a lot of that kind of stuff because it's not the same continuity anymore. But yeah, Hal Jordan was the Spectre for a while, but then he returned to life and he's not dead anymore and he's not a ghost anymore. So yeah, the original, since they didn't go into too much detail on it in the trading card, I might as well go into that detail now. The original Spectre, the Golden Age character, was a detective named Jim Corrigan, and he was brutally murdered by gangsters, sealed up in a tub of concrete, sealed up alive in a tub of concrete, and then dumped in the ocean or the river or whatever, dropped him off a pier, and he died, and he went up to heaven, and he was incensed that he'd been killed without being able to bring justice to these men. So the voice, the one who is above all, and the Judeo-Christian God, Yahweh, Jehovah, whatever you want to call him, sends Jim Corrigan back to Earth as the Spectre. And in the Ostrander Mandrake run, we learned that the Spectre, the spirit that has been bound with Jim Corrigan, is literally the personified wrath of God. It's it's what has been the wrath of God for centuries, and he's not allowed to roam the earth under his own on his own anymore. He has to be bound to a human host, and in this case, that human host is Jim Corrigan, and that way the immense power and just the incredible thirst for vengeance is tethered to a human being. It's tempered by its attachment to the human being. Al Davis says in the Arrowverse they adapted it so Oliver Queen becomes. That's true. That did happen. So Oliver Queen is the most important character in the entire universe. Freaking Green Arrow. So yeah, that's basically the story of the Spectre. I'm getting ahead of myself, but I do love this character. I get kind of passionate about him. First, we're going to talk about Atom Smasher. Now, I don't have the movie Atom Smasher figure, unfortunately, but I do believe that a lot of these parts are reused from that figure. It's got different arms and I believe a different head, but I think a lot of these other parts are reused from that, and I don't blame them because I think that's a good way to recoup some of the costs on that figure. Like because they had to sculpt a whole new figure for the movie. And, you know, what better use for an Atom Smasher movie figure than an Atom Smasher comic book figure? And his costume in the movie was very accurate to the comic book version, of course. The main difference is, the obvious difference is, our guy in the comic book has bare arms, whereas he had long sleeves in the movie. By the way, fun fact, before Black Adam, I forget the name of the actor that plays Atom Smasher in that, but that was the actor that was, at that time, attached to play He-Man in the Masters of the Universe movie. Now, that, of course, didn't work out, and Nicholas Galitzine wound up playing He-Man, but that was the guy that was originally supposed to play He-Man at that point. And I think he actually would have been pretty good, especially if they were going with the same script and the same concept that they wound up going for the movie they actually made. I think he could have played that version of He-Man quite well, actually. So let's go ahead and talk about this figure a little bit more. So yeah, this is based on the comic book, well, even though it does use some stuff from the movie, I think. And let's talk about his articulation. So Atom Smasher can look up about that far, look down about that far, tilt his head kind of goes from side to side, rotate the head all the way around. Of course, the arms rotate all the way around the shoulders. He's got those butterfly joints at the shoulders that move around nice, and they get the arms can raise up to the shoulders about that far. He's got a bicep swivel, which is really, really stuck on this one. It is not moving at all, but it's in there. I can see it. Let's see if we can get this one to move a little better. Yeah, that one rotates all the way around. He's got double jointed elbows. That's about the range of motion you get at the elbows. Excellent range of motion for such beefy arms. I think that they did a good job with that. And then he's got wrists that rotate all the way around, and this one has a horizontal hinge on it. Does not have the typical Mcfarlane wrist articulation that we've come to know and love so much. These are just wrists that rotate all the way around, and they have a horizontal hinge on them, and they are stuck too. I'm guessing this flesh-colored paint is just being stubborn and wanting to stick to everything. So that's how that is. He can move from side to side like that because he's got that cool Mcfarlane torso articulation. He can bend backwards about that far, bend forwards about that far, and then he rotates all the way around where the rib cage meets the abs and where the abs meet the belt. So that's cool. Al Davis says Noah Centineo. Yeah, that's the actor's name. I couldn't remember it, and it wasn't even one of those things where it's like, you know, sometimes like, don't tell me in the chat. I can remember it. It's on the tip of my tongue. It's like, no, I'm just not going to remember that. It's just not going to happen. I don't mean any disrespect to the dude, but like, he's literally been in one movie that I've seen. so it just didn't stand out. I liked him in the one movie I saw. Thought he did a good job. You know, in hindsight, I think he would have been a good He-Man. I really do. So I don't mean to disrespect the guy. But and you know what? I'll say in the face, he actually looks like the He-Man action figure. He probably would have wound up looking even more like He-Man than, you know, Nicholas Galitzine was a fine He-Man. I'm not trying to disrespect him, but I think Noah might have wind up looking like a little bit more like the action figure. Is just what I'm saying. Al Davis says, I remember weird fucking things, names, especially random names. Hey, same here, brother. It's just you know. But that's a useless fact that I did not retain. Guess I'm getting old. Anyway, Atom Smasher can kick up about that far, and you can see like the trunks kind of push his leg down a little bit further and kick back about that far, and he can do the splits no problem. Very impressive agility for a guy his size, is it not? And then he's got double jointed knees. That's about the range of motion you get at the knees. And then no boot cut. And I can't tell. It looks like it's sculpted as if it's one of those cool Mcfarlane ball joints. But is it? It might be, and it might just be stuck. I really can't tell. It's at least sculpted to look like one. Can I get it to turn on this other? If it is a ball joint, it's stuck really good. I can't tell. It does seem to be a separate piece of plastic because there's definitely like something sturdy in between the foot and the shin. So I'm really not sure. I'm really not sure what the articulation is there, but I know that the foot points down about that far and the foot points up about that far. And then he's got toe articulation just to show off. So this is one of the mega figures, I think they call that. And as typical, he's a little more limited in his articulation than a standard Mcfarlane figure usually is when they're in this scale. That's typical. But I will say that for a mega figure, he does have particularly good articulation. It's better. It's not as good as a standard Mcfarlane figure, like I said, but it's still better than the usual mega figure. So they did a good job with him, and I think he's got a nice look. Looks a lot like the comic book. Uses those movie parts to good advantage. Mainly, it's just, he's got some extra seams and he's got some extra surface detail and textures to the suit. And I don't remember his boots being like that in the comic book. Do we see it? We can't even. I don't think we can even see his books in the box. But he's got nice shiny silver boots, which is a very Silver Age kind of thing. I guess to match his bracers, because you got those silver bracers and the gold belt, and he's a nice looking figure. They did a nice job with him. But he's not the rock star of this set, because obviously the rock star of this set is going to be Jim Corrigan, the Wrath of God, the Spectre. So let's go ahead and take him out of the package. Kyra says that Mcfarlane Poison Ivy figure looked good yesterday. I don't think I've seen that. So I'll have to try to find it. I'm pretty sure, were they not, am I hallucinating this? Were they not going to re-release the Uma Thurman Poison Ivy figure? Because I was thinking they were. And that is a hard figure to find. I was thinking she was going to get a re-release. I'd buy another one just so I could do a custom and make the comic book version of Poison Ivy. That's what I would do. All right, so let's get this guy out of the package. Now, long-time viewers who did watch that Spectre review, the previous Spectre review, and some of the later ones where I've talked about characters with his hands are taped into the package for some reason. Other characters with wired capes that I had always hoped they would re-release the Spectre with a wired cape. And now for my sins, they have done exactly that. But so they tape his hands into the bubble, but his hands are buried deep within the bubble. So I'm having to struggle to get them out. It's very pointless that they taped those at all. It accomplished nothing. And I want to be very careful that I don't get this satiny kind of fabric hung on the rough edge of the package as I pull it out. And we almost got it out. There we go. All right. So there are things that I think could have been a lot better with this figure, and we're going to discuss those. And there are things that I really like about this figure, and we are going to discuss those. And we got things about this character that are superior, I think, to the previous version of the Spectre that Mcfarlane put out. And there are things that I think are not quite as good. So I'm going to address one of those things first. And that's that I was not particularly impressed with how they did this hood. And that's because they made this hood too small. And I think probably because they wanted to make sure it fits snugly over the top of the head, the way the Spectre's hood usually looks. Let's look at the you can see like it kind of drapes over his head like a hood tends to do. And that's why I usually prefer, since we got Skeletor right here, I'll use him as an example. I usually prefer when the hoods are sculpted, because that way it can get that good draping effect over the top of the head. But it's difficult to get that with fabric hoods, with soft goods hoods. So that's why I usually tend to prefer a plastic hood. But this one does have the soft goods hood, and man, it's just like tight against the top of his skull. And because of that, it actually winds up not having the kind of draping that it should have at the lower part of it. It just kind of fits tightly on there. But the worst part of how they did this is they got his cape just kind of connected in there like Superman, and then he doesn't have the collar that the Spectre has on the cape. You see how he's actually got a collar in between the cape and the hood, and this version does not have that. It's got like exposed neck there. And in fact, the cape doesn't even clasp in the front like it should do. So they did not, I don't think, get this hood to be as comic book accurate as it could have been. And since it is so tight, I'm kind of worrying that if you tried to move his head too much, it might get stretched and cause the fabric to fray. This is not stretchy fabric, and if you try to stretch it, you're going to fray it. It's just going to happen. You're going to get runs in it. It's going to be bad. So I would advise anyone who has this figure, be really careful with this hood. And in fact, when I talk about the articulation, we're going to skip talking about the articulation. And I might have been tempted to pull the hood down and look at what the head looks like underneath. And it is a bald head. I can tell that by feeling through the fabric. And then he's got like ears on the side. So where was I? I feel like I'm missing part of the chat. Okay. Kyra says, Al Davis, I try to get TSM to show his action figures in his streams, but then he hides them in a corner a lot. And then Kyra says, I didn't know he had any. That's awesome. We can do some two-pronged encouragement. They're conspiring against him. All right. So, and again, this uses, this is entirely a reuse other than the cape. And I think the head is different. I think it might be the same head. I'm going to compare. It might be the same. Yeah, I think it's the same head. It is painted differently, though. Because remember, this one, the whole top half of the head is painted black because he's got that plastic hood that attaches on there. Or since this one's a soft goods hood, they just kind of have the black just kind of painted around the eyes. But it is the same head sculpt. So basically, this is the same figure, except for, let me check on Martian Manhunter. He does not have that seam there, it looks like. So I'm going to guess that this is an entirely new upper torso that they sculpted so they could get that seam in between the neck and the collarbone to fit the cape in there. So, but yeah, the chest is the same. Other than that, it's the same sculpt is what I mean. The arms are the same. The abs are the same. The trunks are the same. The legs are the same. Everything is the same except for the cape as far as the sculpting goes. And you can see that paint scheme is a little bit different. I already talked about the shadow around the eyes being different, but the 2-pack Spectre has a much brighter green, you see, whereas it's much darker on this version. I think they're both greens for the Spectre. Like, I think they both work. I'm not complaining about either one. And it would be nice if this figure had a flight stand. I think I said that about the other Spectre figure too. That really, you want the Spectre to be, I wouldn't even want to be standing on the ground. I'd want him to just be hovering there creepily. And some extra hands would have been nice because I would have liked to have had some gesturing hands for the Spectre where he's working some kind of, transforming somebody into like a big block of wood so he can cut them up with a circular saw or something like that. Ooh, the brutal kind of stuff. Al Davis says, I kind of prefer the rubber hood, but with a wired cape. You know, I was actually thinking along those lines myself, and I thought that might be a good way to customize this figure is, I wouldn't want to cut up this figure, obviously, because like I said, he's very hard to find. But there is another option because the Target exclusive Our Man figure from a while back, that one actually reuses this sculpt as well. So I could cut the hood. I'd probably start at the bottom of the collar. I can cut the hood off of that Atom figure and paint it green, and then I can stick it on this guy. So that's something I was already thinking about, because I did pick up a couple of extra Our Man figures when they were marked down at Target, and I wasn't sure what I was going to do with them at the time. I kind of figured one of them I would repaint to be Rick Tyler, just do a repaint of it. But for the other one, yeah, I might go ahead and do that. And then I've got a pretty basic superhero body underneath, right? That I can do whatever I want to with it. So that should work pretty well. So we're not going to talk about the articulation on this guy's head because I do not feel comfortable moving his head. I feel like that might ruin the hood, and I don't want to do that. But I do love the wired cape, and I suppose it's a trade-off as to whether you want to have a wired cape on there or not. I don't think this looks too bad, like overall. Just like judging it by its own merits, I don't think it looks too bad. But it does not look as close to the comic book as the molded plastic hood did. So I'll say that. So yeah, Al, I concur with you. I think that the best of both worlds approach with the plastic hood and the wired fabric cape. That would be the ideal right there. And also one other nitpick, and I said this about the previous one, they really should have molded this guy in glow-in-the-dark plastic. I kind of figure if you're going to do an action figure of the Spectre, you got to go with the glow-in-the-dark plastic. That's the best way to do it. Damian Ristori is here and says, hi, Alan. Happy to see you're still doing these streams. Can I ask your opinion? What is your favorite version of Sinestro in toy form? That is an excellent question. I'm going to have to think about that for a minute. I will say that, at least in recent memory, I really like the look of the Super Friends Sinestro figure. I mentioned in that review the first time I ever saw Sinestro was when he was in the Legion of Doom on Super Friends, and that kind of became the definitive look of the character in my mind. So I do really like that particular design. I thought of the two the figures that I have from Mcfarlane, there's the Sinestro core version and there's the Parallax version. I thought both of those were really great, but I am more of a fan of Sinestro in blue. I've mentioned that before. I know the yellow makes more sense. I'm not trying to say the yellow doesn't make more sense, but I got my nostalgic fondness for that blue uniform that he had in the Silver Age and the Bronze Age, and that's the look that I tend to prefer. I did really like. I thought the regular DC Classics figure was too short. Sinestro should be quite tall. But I did really like the 2-pack that they eventually put out, where they put him out in a 2-pack with Hal Jordan and put him onto a taller body. I really like that Sinestro figure. That's a really good one. And the Superpowers figure, I really like the Superpowers figure, and I have both the yellow and blue versions of that one. And I really like that one because that was the Sinestro figure that I always wanted when I was a kid and never got to have him. So I kind of feel like that's something that I finally got about, 40 years too late, but finally got it. And then Damien says, I loved Masters of the Universe and I've seen it 3 times now. Hey, great movie. I loved it too. I wish I could have gotten to the theater and seen it another time since then, but unfortunately life gets in the way, and I would love to have seen it at least one more time. And I will definitely be picking that one up on Blu-ray when it hits Blu-ray. And once it hits streaming, I figure I'm gonna be watching it several times once it hits streaming. Al Davis says, they're having their conversation about TMS, who apparently is a DC guy, and they are still conspiring to see these action figures that are being withheld from them. So so let's go ahead and talk about the articulation on this guy a little bit. Like I said, I ain't touching his head. I ain't trying to move his head. We are not turning the head. That is not moving around. I'm not fooling with that. I don't want to mess up the hood. I'm afraid to mess up the hood. It's very tight. It's just drawn so tight over the top of his head. I just don't want to mess with it. The arms rotate all the way around the shoulders, and they got the cool butterfly joint on there that moves around any which way you want to. Raises up to the sides about that far. And he's got double jointed elbows. That's about the range of motion you get at the elbows. He's got a bicep sole that rotates all the way around. He's got the cool Mcfarlane wrist articulation, so you can move this around any which way you want to. Torso can move from side to side about that far, back and forth about that far. And then he rotates all the way around where the rib cage meets the abs, rotates all the way around where the abs meet the belt. Al Davis says the Sneezing Monkey does UFO debunking and live streams on Wednesday and Saturday at 9 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time, UK time. Yeah, because the British were the fellows who came up with this whole time zone structure. So they get to say, we started it, so it starts right here. Like, fair enough. And of course, I am on, for anyone interested, I am on Eastern Standard Time, as we call it in the United States. Aldiva says, we invented time. Well, at least our perception of time. How about that? At least you determined how we judge where the sun falls on the earth. So you have the where the time zone starts. I'm a little bit later in it, and if Amiga Cami was here, she'd be closer to the tail end of it. So, and then Kyra says, how much longer does Mcfarlane have the DC license? This whole year? I believe till the end of summer. I believe that's it. I know it was summer at some point. And of course, we're already seeing the Mattel stuff start to come out because, I did open Batman from Mattel last week. And I will have more of those in the future, but I haven't been able to pick up any more yet. I've been too busy to run by Target, except for one time. One time I was able to run by Target, and they only had, they gotten in another assortment of those, and they only had one left. And you want to know what one figure they had left? That's right. It was Batman. So, But the good news is I still do have like a bunch of Mcfarlane figures to open up. I've got Saturn Girl, and I've got the Guardian. I've got the 2025 movie version of Lex Luthor, and a few other DC characters that I still need to open. So don't worry, we're still gonna have. Technically, I've got the Henry Cavill Superman, the Heat Vision Superman, but I'm not sure if I'm going to do a video about that because I've already talked about that figure basically. I guess I could. I mean, like I do like to talk about the Zack Snyder films on this channel as much as possible. That would give me an excuse to do that. I know Raheem would like to talk more about the Snyder films. We get excited about that, but Jason Zlucker says, great evil laugh, Alan. Thank you. That's how you do an evil laugh. All right. So, and then Bobby Wald says, isn't this the conversation you should have had when you're opening up the Clock King? Yeah, well, I blame Al Davis. He's the one who brought up Greenwich Mean Time. That's on him. Al Davis says, I could have sworn you were going to reveal Robin. Man, I want that Mattel Robin figure. I got it. That's, of all of them, that's the one that I'm most excited about. Even more than Batman, because it's the first figure of Robin that we've ever had in that particular costume, and it is my second favorite Robin costume, with of course the first favorite being the 1990 Tim Drake Neil Adams designed costume. Damien Restory says, was that Dr. Evil? And then we all stand around laughing and then just kind of awkwardly trail off. Bobby Wald says hi to Al Davis, and I'm sure Al Davis will say hi back. So where was I as far as the articulation goes? Oh yeah, the Spectre can kick up about that far. He has not really much wobble there. A little bit, but not a whole lot to speak of. He's got double jointed knees. That's about the range of motion you get at the knees. Oh yeah, he can do the splits about that far. He's a little stiff. You might have all the powers of the wrath of God, but you can't do a split really, can you? It's fine. He doesn't really need to. And then he's got the great Mcfarlane ankle articulation, so his foot points down about that far, foot points up about that far, rotates all around where the foot meets the ankle and where the ankle meets the shin. And that is articulation for the Spectre. And I think that brings this episode to a close. We opened up two very, 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 very good. Damien Story says Scooby-Doo quality. Well, thank you, sir. These are both very cool figures, and like I said, I don't know what connection they had with throwing these two in the package together, other than them both being Justice Society characters. But I suppose that's enough reason, right? I can think of other characters that might have made more sense to have. It might have made more sense to throw Atom Smasher into a 2-pack with, say, Stargirl or another member of Infinity Incorporated. Hey, I just realized that gives me another member of Infinity Incorporated, because I already have Jade and Obsidian. Now I got Nuclon, at least in the form of Atom Smasher. And personally, I prefer the Atom Smasher design over the Nuclon design. That's just me. Al Davis says he stole Peter Pan's booty shoes. That's right, he did. The little they're almost kind of like socks at the top, aren't they? But yeah, he's got the same type of Peter Pan shoes. It's kind of a weird thing on a character like the Spectre, who is supposed to be like a very serious kind of character, to have such a whimsical touch on there. But it works somehow. I think it works. Kyra says I laugh like that when I grab my Yorkie Terrier. And then Damien we need the Spectre's enemy, the Shade. Ooh, the Shade would have been another good figure to have in the 2-pack with him. Eclipso. They recently put out an Eclipso figure, but I wasn't too impressed with it. I don't think they used the right torso for Eclipso, because he's supposed to be he's not wearing a shirt in that figure, and they have a torso that is clearly wearing a shirt. It does not have the proper muscle tone to it that it ought to have. So I was disappointed in that Eclipso figure, so I didn't pick it up. But yeah, I am really happy with this Spectre figure, and it's great news for the people who did not get a chance to pick up this figure. Now you got a chance to pick up the figure. And if I got to pick one over the other, it might surprise you when I say this, I'm going to pick this one with the plastic cape. And even though I much prefer the fabric wired capes that Mcfarlane was doing a while back, it's the hood that's what makes me like this one better. Is I like the hood on this one much better than the hood on this one, and I feel like it's a lot more comic book accurate. And as me and Al Davis were talking about in the chat, I think I am going to make that custom. I'm not sure if I'm going to, because I think I can probably get one of these, another one of these. They still seem like they're still fairly available. Maybe I might even get lucky and find one on sale. Let's look on Amazon right now, and we can see what they're going. Because I might even be able to get one for cheap now. I got this one on the Mcfarlane website, and I used the PayPal Pay in 4, so I did pay full price for it, but I didn't have to pay full price for it at that time. So that worked out well for me. Was it that, or was it Klarna? It was one of those two. Anyway, let's see, Mcfarlane, DC Multiverse. Hey, Raheem, when I looked up DC Multiverse on here, the little thumbnail it gave me was a picture of Asbats. So if you're still watching, you might be amused to hear that. Well, Spectre. Okay. Yeah, I can get another one of these 2-packs on Amazon right now for $43.11. So that means we're gonna do a custom. We're totally gonna do that custom, because I can buy another one of these and not even worry about screwing it up. I might even just leave that one in the box. Why not? Al Davis says, cheers, Alan, as always. Cheers, everyone in the chat. Peace and love all. Peace and love. Right back to you, my brother. Kyrus says, I got the Guerrera Black series for Star Wars for $7 shipped, and it was very well engineered. But congratulations, I'm glad you got a good deal. So yeah, I'm gonna order another one of those. I'm gonna be ordering another one of these 2-packs soon, and then we'll get to work on our custom, and I will make the definitive DC Multiverse Spectre. But that's it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please make sure that you like and subscribe and all the fun YouTube stuff down below. Leave a comment and let me know what you think about each of these 2 figures, and you can talk about the characters and maybe some stories you like these characters in the comments. If you made it this far in the video, if you're watching this in the replay and you made it this far in the video, here's your homework assignment. We're going to talk some about the Spectre in the comic books, and I want you to tell me if you read the Aparo Fleischer run in the 1970s, or if you read the Ostrander Mandrake run in the 90s. Personally, I've always been a big fan of the character of the Spectre, and I feel like that those are his finest moments. There's some good stuff in the Golden Age, obviously, and some good stuff in the Silver Age. I don't mean to shortchange Murphy Anderson, who's a terrific artist and did some cool stuff with the Spectre in the Silver Age, as did Neil Adams, who did a few issues of the Spectre and did some great work with that. So, but for me, it's the Aparo Fleischer version all the way. That's my favorite version of the Spectre for me personally. Anyway, that brings this episode to a close. Next week, by request from Raheem Hamilton, I'm going to be opening up an action figure of Dwayne Johnson as Black Adam, and we'll talk a little bit more about that movie. So, which I did very much enjoy. Maybe I should give that another watch in between now and then, and that way I can refamiliarize myself with the film when we talk about the action figure. So it has been a while since I watched it, and I did enjoy that movie. Man, was it heartbreaking that we didn't get more of Henry Cavill as Superman. Like I really think that was a huge mistake on the part of Warner Brothers, and I think they're paying the price for it right now, because apparently the Supergirl movie is not doing so hot at the box office. Yeah. So yeah, it looks like that's shaping up to not be a big hit movie for them, unfortunately. But hey, you reap what you sow, right? Anyway, that's it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. We will talk to you next time. Bye.